Hundreds of Japanese soldiers launching a frantic counterattack, their Type 92 heavy machine guns firing in that distinct slow, tock-tock rhythm that earned them the nickname Woodpecker. The Japanese crews struggle with their 122-pound guns, feeding 30 round strips as quickly as they can, while American M1919s unleash relentless streams of fire. What follows will showcase the clear superiority of American automatic weapons doctrine and explain why the M1919 Browning became the cornerstone of U.S. firepower, while Japan's Type 92 proved disastrously insufficient for modern combat. The American M1919A4 Browning arrived in the Pacific Theater as a refined version of battle-tested technology, created by the renowned firearms designer John Moses Browning as an air-cooled variant of his M1917 water-cooled machine gun. The M1919 epitomized American industrial warfare at its peak. This weapon fired the potent .30-06 Springfield cartridge at a rate of 400 to 600 rounds per minute from a 250-round cloth belt. The calculations behind its destructive capability were straightforward yet effective. Each .30-06 round propelled a 150-grain bullet at 2,800 feet per second from the M1919's 24-inch barrel, delivering lethal kinetic energy at distances over 1,500 yards. The design philosophy behind the M1919A4 prioritized practical effectiveness over theoretical perfection. Weighing just 31 pounds, with a 14-pound tripod bringing the total weight to 45 pounds, the weapon was manageable for a two-man crew to carry and operate. While some criticized the gun's relatively loose tolerances for compromising accuracy, this feature actually improved reliability, enabling the weapon to function even when contaminated with sand, mud, or carbon buildup. Its recoil-operated, belt-fed mechanism was straightforward enough for teenage Marines to learn quickly with minimal training, yet durable enough to fire thousands of rounds without issues. By 1944, American factories had manufactured nearly 390,000 M1919 machine guns in various models. Production was spread across multiple contractors, with the Saginaw Steering Gear Division of General Motors alone producing over 200,000 units. Buffalo Arms Corporation and Rock Island Arsenal contributed tens of thousands more to the effort. This enormous production made sure that American troops in the Pacific had dependable, standardized automatic weapons at every organizational level. The U.S. Marine Corps used M1919A4s at the company level, with 2 guns allocated to the weapons platoon. By 1945, Marine divisions had hundreds of these weapons, creating overlapping fields of fire capable of devastating any infantry attack. In stark contrast was the Japanese Type 92 heavy machine gun, named after the Japanese imperial year 250092, which corresponds to 1932 in the Gregorian calendar. This weapon symbolized Japan's efforts to modernize their automatic firearms based on the French Hotchkiss design. The Type 92 was a gas-operated, air-cooled weapon that used 30-round metal strips and fired a 7.7 by 58 mm semi-rimmed cartridge. Although the Type 92 had a larger caliber than previous Japanese firearms, it faced significant design flaws that became disastrous in combat situations. It could fire its 7.7 mm rounds at around 450 rounds per minute, but the 30-round feed strips greatly restricted its ability to maintain sustained fire. While the 7.7 mm cartridge was superior in ballistics to Japan's older 6.5 mm rounds, the feeding mechanism caused crews to spend more time reloading than actually shooting. The Type 92 weighed 122 pounds when fully equipped with its tripod, making it an astonishing 77 pounds heavier than the combined weight of the M1919A4, which was only 45 pounds. This considerable weight difference resulted from over-engineering, as the gun was manufactured with such high precision that it negatively affected its performance on the battlefield. The most significant flaw of the Type 92 was its ammunition oiling system. Every gun featured an internal oil pump that lubricated cartridges as they were loaded into the chamber. Ideally, this would facilitate smooth extraction when primary extraction wasn't sufficient. However, in reality, the oil attracted dirt, sand, and debris typical of the Pacific jungle, leading to frequent and severe jams. The precisely engineered parts, which might have dazzled during peacetime displays, turned into a disadvantage under combat conditions. In contrast to the M1919's loose tolerances that could handle battlefield grime, the Type 92's tight tolerances meant that even minimal debris could cause the weapon to fail. The feed strip system was also an issue. The 30-round metal strips were delicate and prone to bending or damage during transport and combat. Each strip required a few seconds to load, rendering the gun inoperable during that time. In contrast, American gunners had the ability to connect several cloth belts together, allowing for continuous ammunition feeds of 500 rounds or more. The Type 92 also had an unusual sight placement, positioned to the right instead of being centered, which made training more difficult and decreased accuracy during quick target engagement. Japan produced around 45,000 Type 92 heavy machine guns during its entire production span from 1932 to 1945. The Tokyo Gas and Electric Company, along with Hino Motors and Hitachi, crafted these weapons with great attention to peacetime standards that ultimately proved inadequate for mass production. Each Type 92 required extensive hand-fitting of components, resulting in high costs and lengthy production times. In contrast, the United States produced nearly 390,000 M1919 machine guns during World War II alone, which was almost 9 times Japan's total output. This striking difference highlighted the fundamental imbalance in industrial capabilities between the two countries. Their production approaches were vastly different. American manufacturers implemented techniques from the automotive sector, with General Motors' Saginaw division using assembly line processes refined for car manufacturing. Parts were fully interchangeable across brands, meaning a gun made by Buffalo Arms could utilize components from Saginaw or Rock Island Arsenal without any adjustments. In contrast, Japanese Type 92s often required custom fitting for replacement parts, as the artisanal nature of their production meant that parts from one firearm might not be compatible with another. By 1944, American factories were churning out more M1919s in a single month than Japan manufactured Type 92s in an entire year. The night of October 24 to 25, 1942, at Henderson Field on Guadalcanal, underscored the critical need for dependable automatic weapons. The air-cooled 30s were our mobile reserve. When the Japs broke through, we could grab the gun and tripod and rush to fill the gap. At Tarawa in November 1943, Marine machine gun crews demonstrated the M1919's adaptability in amphibious combat. Even after being drenched with seawater during the landing, the M1919s were quickly deployed into action. Corporal James Russell of the 2nd Marine Division took out several Japanese positions with his M1919A4, moving the gun manually across the coral-strewn battlefield. The gun never failed, Russell later recounted. We poured water from our canteens on the barrel to cool it, wiped the sand off the belt, and kept firing. We went through 10 boxes of ammo, 2,500 rounds, and never had a jam. In stark contrast, the Japanese Type 92 guns defending Bidio Island constantly malfunctioned due to coral dust interfering with their oiling systems. The Battle of Saipan in June and July 1944 showcased American machine gun superiority. During the massive banzai charge on July 7, when 4,000 Japanese soldiers assaulted American positions, M1919 crews from the 27th Infantry Division established interlocking fields of fire that turned the attack into a massacre. Sergeant Thomas Bakers and his M1919 crew fired nonstop for 6 hours, using up case after case of ammunition. We had extra barrels on standby, his assistant gunner Carl Morrison recalled. When one barrel overheated, we'd switch it out in 10 seconds and keep firing. The Japanese just kept coming, and we kept taking them down. Our gun must have taken out around 200 of them. During the battle at Palaleu in September 1944, the M1919's reliability in extreme conditions became legendary. Marines enduring 115-degree heat noticed that while the Japanese Type 92s would seize up due to thermal expansion of their precisely fitted parts, the M1919s kept running smoothly. Corporal Sterling Mace noted that the Japanese gunners would fire a few rounds, then go silent as their guns jammed again. Our .30s just kept pounding away. We knew we had fire superiority, and that gave us the confidence to keep pushing forward. The February 1945 battle for Manila highlighted the significance of mobility in urban warfare. Marine and Army units armed with M1919s could swiftly reposition their weapons from one building to another or from window to window. With a total weight of 45 pounds, a two-man team could easily run while keeping the weapon system intact. In contrast, the Japanese Type 92 crews struggled with a cumbersome 122-pound weapon and mount, making them essentially immobile once they were set up. Lieutenant Colonel John Chason emphasized that in city combat, the ability to shoot and move was crucial. Our machine gun teams could take their positions, fire a belt, and relocate before Japanese mortars could zero in on them. The Type 92s for the enemy became death traps, too heavy for quick movement, turning them into fixed targets. The design of the M1919 was directly influenced by lessons learned from World War I and innovations during the interwar period. The original M1917 water-cooled Browning had shown great effectiveness in France, but the Army saw the necessity for a lighter, more mobile weapon suited for future mechanized warfare. In 1919, Browning adjusted his design to incorporate air cooling, resulting in a weapon that could be mounted on vehicles, used in aircraft, and carried by infantry. The Army Ordnance Department dedicated years to refining the design through extensive testing and improvement. This development process highlighted American military philosophy, the importance of thorough testing, integration of user feedback, and ongoing enhancement. From 1919 to 1936, when the M1919A4 was completed, the weapon underwent numerous changes based on troop evaluations. The barrel was reinforced, the feed mechanism was simplified, and the tripod was redesigned for a lower profile and reduced weight. Every change was rooted in hands-on experience rather than just theoretical engineering. The .306 Springfield cartridge, standardized in 1906, had established itself as an exemplary military round over 2 decades, striking a balance between power, range, and controllability. In contrast, Japan's Type 92 represented an effort to replicate and enhance foreign designs without fully grasping the demands of modern warfare. Drawing from the French Hotchkiss machine gun, which Japan had licensed in 1905 during the Russo-Japanese War, the Type 92 featured modifications that ultimately undermined its combat efficiency. The Japanese military's experience had mainly been in China against ill-equipped forces, where the Type 92's precise single shots and short bursts were sufficient. They underestimated the firepower required to contend with well-equipped American troops. Japan's dedication to precision manufacturing was rooted in samurai traditions, prioritizing individual craftsmanship over mass production. Each Type 92 was practically handcrafted, with skilled workers meticulously fitting the parts together. While this method was effective for creating small batches of rifles or swords, it fell short for military equipment that required mass production. The oil pump system introduced to address the shortcomings of the original Hotchkiss design showcased Japanese engineers tackling a mechanical issue without factoring in battlefield practicality. Documents captured during the island hopping campaign indicated a growing awareness of the American advantage in firepower. A diary found from a Japanese officer on Saipan remarked, "The enemy's machine guns fire continuously without pause. Our Type 92s need to pause for reloading every 30 rounds, while the Americans seem to have an endless supply of ammunition. We can't make any progress through their gunfire. One American weapon is as effective as 5 of ours." A report from Guadalcanal noted that enemy automatic weapons create an unyielding wall of bullets. Our woodpecker can't match their sustained fire. They've stripped away the human aspect of killing, it has become purely mechanical. The psychological toll was devastating. Japanese soldiers referred to American positions as the lawn mower because of how the M1919 mowed down attacking waves with mechanical precision. The relentless sound of American machine guns, in stark contrast to the slower tock-tock-tock of the Type 92, became a noise that demoralized Japanese troops even before assaults began. A captured Japanese training manual from 1944 admitted that the enemy's superior firepower, particularly their machine guns, must be countered through nighttime infiltration in close combat, where their advantages can be reduced. Lieutenant Hiroaki Samashima, captured on Luzon, provided a thorough account of the Type 92's shortcomings. "We were well aware that our machine gun was subpar, with the oil pump failing consistently. In the humid jungle, the oil turned into a sticky mess, mixing with vegetation and dirt. We spent more time cleaning than actually firing. The strips were prone to bending and only held 30 rounds each. By the time we managed to reload, the Americans had already taken out half our squad. We referred to their machine guns as Hitler's zipper because of the sound they made, reminiscent of a zipper opening but far more horrific." The Japanese military's own analysis, found in documents at Kure Naval Base after the war, acknowledged that the Type 92 heavy machine gun was inadequate against American forces. Their M1919 series weapons consistently achieved fire superiority in every battle. Unfortunately, recommendations for improvement couldn't be acted upon due to production constraints. Units must depend on bravery to counteract mechanical disadvantages. The production of the American M1919 maintained an impressively consistent quality throughout the war, even as monthly output rose from hundreds to thousands of units. Parts made by Saginaw were entirely interchangeable with those from Buffalo Arms or Rock Island Arsenal. This standardization allowed weapons to be repaired in the field using parts from any manufacturer or even salvaged from damaged weapons. Quality control remained strict through statistical sampling and rigorous specifications. The streamlined manufacturing processes created for mass production actually enhanced reliability by increasing tolerances and removing unnecessary complexity. The production lines functioned with relentless efficiency. At the Saginaw plant, workers who previously assembled steering columns were retrained to manufacture machine guns. The company implemented automotive mass production methods, specialized machinery, an assembly line structure, and a division of labor. Each worker focused on specific tasks repeatedly, achieving a level of speed and consistency that handcrafting could not match. By 1943, Saginaw was producing 10,000 minutes and 1919 seconds each month, surpassing the total annual output of Japan's Type 92. In contrast, the quality of Japanese Type 92 production declined as the war continued. The early Type 92s made by Tokyo Gas and Electric boasted stunning rust blue finishes and precisely fitted components. The company's prior experience in manufacturing industrial equipment was evident in the weapon's exceptional fit and finish. Rough machining marks, simplified sights, and increasingly poor metallurgy. As Japan's resources dwindled, the use of substitute materials meant that late-war Type 92s were more likely to suffer from parts breakage. Captured examples from 1945 showed that cast steel had been replaced with inferior cast iron in non-critical areas, wooden handles were used instead of steel for training elevations, and simplified strip guides were prone to jamming. The already problematic oil pump mechanism became even less reliable as manufacturing precision dropped. Late-war pumps often supplied too much or too little oil, either flooding the action with lubricant that attracted debris or providing inadequate lubrication, resulting in extraction failures. American intelligence reports indicated that captured late-war Type 92s were nearly unusable without a complete overhaul. The Japanese military's inspections increasingly rejected new production, but faced with desperation, they sent even subpar weapons to combat units. In contrast, the United States manufactured .306 ammunition in vast quantities with perfect standardization. No matter if it was produced in Denver, St. Louis, Salt Lake City, or numerous other locations, every round worked flawlessly in any M1919. American forces in the Pacific received consistent supplies of ammunition packed in moisture-proof containers, which shielded them from the corrosion that affected Japanese ammunition in tropical climates. By 1944, American factories were churning out over 10 billion rounds each year, sufficient to provide continuous fire for every machine gun in action. Throughout the war, innovation persisted for both the weapons and their ammunition. Standard red traces for marking targets, dim traces for stealthy positions, and delayed traces that ignited only after 100 yards to keep the shooter's location concealed. Incendiary rounds were effective against Japanese aircraft and fuel storage. Specialized armor-piercing incendiary (API) rounds combined both penetration and fire-starting functions. The M1919-06 variant, rolled out in late 1943, featured a shoulder stock, carrying handle, and bipod for improved portability. Although it weighed 32 pounds without the tripod, making it heavier than preferred for a light machine gun, it provided American forces with added versatility. Marine units in the Pacific created many field modifications. The well-known Barcelona bale, a wire anwood handle designed to be attached to hot barrels for quick relocation, was created by John Bazarone himself, drawing from his experiences in Guadalcanal and later adapted for mass production. Marines also tried out special mounts that allowed M1919s to be fired from the hip while on the move, although these turned out to be impractical in real combat situations. More effective were makeshift anti-aircraft mounts fashioned from salvaged materials, which enabled M1919s to target low-flying Japanese planes. Tank crews reinforced their vehicles by welding extra M1919s to the outside for added firepower against Japanese infantry assaults. The straightforward design of these weapons meant that such modifications could be carried out using basic tools and little technical expertise. Japan had difficulty providing sufficient supplies of 7.7mm ammunition for the Type 92. The unique semi-rimmed cartridge necessitated precise manufacturing, which became increasingly challenging as American submarines choked off Japanese shipping routes and B-29s obliterated factories. The ammunition existed in at least 4 distinct, non-interchangeable variations of 7.7mm, leading to logistical nightmares. The 30-round strips were delicate and easily damaged, humidity could cause them to rust together, while rough handling could bend them beyond repair. In contrast to the durable cloth belts of the M1919 that could be linked endlessly, each Type 92 strip was a standalone component prone to failure. Japanese forces lacked the ability to innovate. The Type 92 used at Guadalcanal in 1942 was nearly identical to those deployed in the last battles of 1945. No enhancements were made to resolve the oil pump issues, the limitations of the feed strips, or the excessive weight. Japanese manufacturers, already struggling to produce adequate quantities, couldn't adapt to design changes that would necessitate retooling. Even basic enhancements like drain holes for water buildup or larger trigger guards for users in gloves were never put into action. American machine gun crews underwent thorough training in the U.S. before being deployed. The M1919 was incredibly straightforward to use. To operate it, you simply pull the bolt handle back twice to cock the weapon, feed the belt from the left, and pull the trigger. Changing the barrel could be done in seconds using an asbestos mitt, although it did require opening the top cover, which was still much easier than many modern designs. U.S. military doctrine focused on high rates of fire and mechanical ease of use. Machine gun crews were instructed to function as teams, with assistant gunners handling ammunition and cooling while the main gunners focused on firing. The training focused on practical skills rather than formalities. Crews repeatedly practiced immediate action drills until clearing jams became second nature. They learned to identify different malfunction sounds and could troubleshoot issues without needing to see the problem. Estimating range, adjusting beaten zones, and manipulating traverse and elevation became automatic. Most importantly, American gunners were trained to fire and then reposition, shooting in bursts before enemy mortars could zero in on them. The M1919's 45-pound weight made this feasible, allowing crews to grab the gun and tripod and dash to new locations. American tactics also prioritized fire superiority through teamwork. Machine guns were used in pairs or groups with overlapping fields of fire, creating kill zones that enemies couldn't breach. The guns were set up to support each other. If one jammed or required a barrel change, the others would increase their fire rate to make up for it. This methodical approach to using automatic weapons enhanced the effectiveness of each individual gun. Crews operating the Japanese Type 92 required extensive training just to keep their weapons functioning. The oil pump needed precise adjustments based on temperature and humidity. Too much oil in cold weather would solidify, while too little in hot conditions would lead to malfunctions. The 30-round strips had to be loaded with care to prevent bending the feed lips. The intricate sights demanded constant recalibration, with different settings for various types of ammunition. Japanese doctrine prioritized accuracy over volume, training Type 92 crews to deliver short, precise bursts at specific targets instead of prolonged suppressive fire. This philosophical difference turned out to be disastrous. Japanese gunners were instructed to conserve ammunition, choosing their targets carefully and firing with intention. This strategy was reasonable given the limited ammo and slow reload times, but it fell short against American tactics. However, the Americans didn't rely on human waves, they depended on firepower. While a Japanese Type 92 crew meticulously targeted individual Marines, 3 or 4 minutes and 199 seconds would easily decimate their position with focused fire. The reliability of the M1919 became legendary among veterans of the Pacific. Tales emerged of guns that kept firing after being buried in sand, submerged in seawater, or coated in volcanic ash from Iwo Jima. The loose tolerances that some critics claimed compromised accuracy actually enabled the weapon to operate even when clogged with debris, a vital edge in Pacific combat. Marines recounted instances of M1919s firing nonstop for hours, with crews pouring water from their canteens onto the barrels to keep them cool enough to keep shooting. A well-known event on Okinawa involved an M1919 that had been knocked off a cliff by a Japanese shell, falling 30 feet onto the rocky ground. The gun was retrieved, the damaged tripod was replaced, and it resumed firing for the rest of the campaign. Another M1919 on Guam was taken from a swamp where it had been underwater for 3 days. After a basic cleaning and oiling, it worked flawlessly. These accounts, confirmed by after-action reports, boosted the confidence of American gunners, who trusted that their weapons wouldn't fail them. The simplicity of the M1919 was key to its reliability. With just a few moving parts, bolt, barrel, and feed mechanism, there was little chance of malfunction. The recoil operation ensured that as long as ammunition was available, the gun would continue to cycle. Even worn-out guns with significant headspace would keep functioning, though their accuracy might diminish. Field maintenance only required basic cleaning and lubrication with any available oil, such as motor oil, cooking oil, or even coconut oil in a pinch. In contrast, the Type 92 had a notorious reputation. American Marines learned to recognize the telltale silence that indicated a Type 92 had jammed, using those moments to advance or reposition themselves. The oiling system, intended to enhance reliability, ultimately became the weapon's biggest flaw. In the humid jungles of Guadalcanal and New Guinea, oil mixed with moisture and plant debris to form a grimy paste that would seize the mechanism. On coral atolls like Tarawa and Palau, fine sand mixed with oil created an abrasive compound that damaged the finely fitted parts. Veterans noted that captured Type 92s were practically useless without significant maintenance. Even with proper cleaning and servicing, they demanded constant attention to keep running. The feed strips would rust in the humid Pacific air, sticking together and refusing to operate. The oil pump would get clogged with debris, necessitating complete disassembly for cleaning. The precisely fitted components would seize due to thermal expansion in the extreme heat. American intelligence determined that the Type 92 needed 5 times more maintenance hours than an M1919 to stay functional. The Battle of Okinawa from April to June 1945 highlighted the stark contrast between these weapon systems. American forces had honed their machine gun tactics over 3 years of combat in the Pacific. M1919 crews operated in perfect harmony, creating interlocking fields of fire that rendered Japanese attacks deadly. The ferocity of the battle resulted in machine guns firing nearly non-stop for days, putting their reliability and endurance to the ultimate test. During the enormous Japanese counteroffensive on May 4, 1945, American machine guns confronted relentless human wave assaults of unmatched intensity. M1919 crews from the 96th Infantry Division fired continuously for more than 12 hours. Staff Sergeant Beaufort Anderson's gun section used up 30,000 rounds in just one night, exhausting 6 spare barrels yet never encountering a malfunction. "We just kept loading belts and swapping out barrels," Anderson remembered. "The gun never stopped. Bodies accumulated in front of our position, eventually obstructing our line of fire, forcing us to shoot through them." Japanese Type 92 crews at Okinawa displayed remarkable courage, but their effectiveness was limited by their weaponry. The inability to maintain continuous fire allowed American forces to advance during reloading intervals. The 30-round belts were used up in seconds during fierce firefights, leaving crews frantically trying to reload while facing enemy fire. When Type 92s did manage to hit their targets, the psychological impact was minimal compared to the devastating fire from M1919s, which could clear an area of life in moments. The cave warfare that defined much of the fighting in Okinawa showcased another benefit of the M1919. Its portability enabled Marine and Army units to take machine guns deep into cave systems, providing crucial firepower in tight spaces. In contrast, the 122-pound Type 92 was nearly immobile in such environments. After-action reports from American forces often noted that captured Type 92s were frequently left behind in caves. Their crews couldn't move them when their positions were overrun. Many were found with jammed mechanisms and broken feed strips scattered around, evidence of their crew's desperate last moments. A notable statistic from Okinawa shows that American forces captured over 200 Type 92 machine guns, but only 12 were operational. The rest had been abandoned due to malfunctions, destroyed by their crews to avoid capture, or were so worn that they were beyond repair. In comparison, American M1919s that had been in continuous combat since Guadalcanal were still functioning reliably 3 years later. The end of the war highlighted the vast difference in production. The United States produced nearly 390,000 M1919 machine guns across all variants, while Japan's total production of the Type 92 barely surpassed 45,000 units. This significant 9-to-1 edge in automatic weapons fundamentally influenced combat in the Pacific theater. American troops could afford to use ammunition freely, relying on an unlimited supply. In contrast, Japanese forces had to conserve every round, facing an increasingly difficult resupply situation. The M1919 continued to serve American forces through Korea, Vietnam, and various other conflicts. Many Allied nations utilized the weapon into the 1990s, with some converted to 7.62mm NATO still operational today. Its design impacted later machine guns globally, with the belt-feed mechanism and quick-change barrel becoming standard features. The M60 machine gun that succeeded it incorporated many elements from the M1919, validating Browning's original design. The Type 92, despite its shortcomings, gained reluctant respect from American troops for the courage of its crews. Captured weapons turned into sought-after souvenirs, although most Americans who obtained them were unaware of their inferiority compared to the M1919. Veterans showcased seized Type 92s at Bond rallies across the U.S., impressing audiences with the clumsy feed strips and intricate mechanisms while highlighting American technological superiority. Ironically, many Type 92s that were brought home as trophies now remain in better condition than they ever were in battle, lovingly preserved by collectors who dedicate time to the upkeep these firearms demand. Post-war evaluations by American ordnance specialists uncovered the significant shortcomings of the Type 92 design. Tests at Aberdeen Proving Ground revealed that even under optimal conditions with flawless maintenance, the Type 92 couldn't match the sustained firing rate of the M1919. The oil pump system was largely inadequate for military use. The feed strips were outdated technology, and the excessive weight made the weapon tactically rigid. The report concluded that the Type 92 was more suitable for peacetime than for modern combat. The differences between the M1919 and Type 92 highlighted more than just variations in weaponry, they underscored significant disparities in industrial philosophy, military strategy, and the perception of modern warfare. The American method prioritized mass production, standardization, and overwhelming firepower. The M1919 was intended to be produced by automobile manufacturers, easily maintained by young individuals with little training, and used in large numbers. This philosophy permeated American military production, focusing on quantity with adequate quality rather than striving for perfect weapons in limited supply. America's industrial sector, already the largest in the world before the war, grew significantly to fulfill military requirements. The same factories that produced cars were able to manufacture machine guns, utilizing the same workforce, tools, and methods. This adaptability allowed for rapid increases in production that could be maintained indefinitely. The focus on interchangeable parts simplified logistics. Any component could work in any firearm, and any ammunition would be compatible with any weapon. This standardization enhanced combat effectiveness by ensuring maximum availability. In contrast, Japan's strategy was rooted in a military tradition that prioritized individual warrior skill over industrial power. The Type 92's precision manufacturing and focus on accuracy rather than production volume reflected samurai traditions that were ill-suited for industrial warfare. Its complex oiling system and feed strips indicated a failure to understand that battlefield reliability was more crucial than performance in peacetime. The weight and complexity of the weapons indicated a fundamental misunderstanding of what modern combat requires, where mobility and firepower take precedence over precision. The psychological effects influenced battles across the Pacific. American troops were aware of their weapon superiority, instilling confidence that impacted their tactical choices. Marines and soldiers stood firm against banzai charges, relying on their M1919s to provide the necessary firepower. They could push forward confidently, knowing their machine guns could dominate any Japanese position. This self-fulfilling confidence meant that aggressive tactics thrived due to their firepower advantage, which further reinforced their assertive approach. In contrast, Japanese forces recognized that their Type 92s fell short against American arms, prompting them to resort to increasingly desperate strategies. The banzai charges that marked late-war Japanese tactics emerged partly from the understanding that they could not win against the superior American firepower in direct firefights. When you can't match the enemy's fire volume, your only choice is to engage in close combat, where those firepower advantages diminish. This tactical desperation resulted in massive casualties that accelerated Japan's defeat. The industrial ramifications went beyond just weaponry. America's capacity to mass-produce standardized equipment allowed for an unlimited supply of every warfare component, from ammunition to spare parts to training resources. In contrast, Japan's artisan approach meant that each weapon was somewhat unique, requiring specialized parts and individual attention. This complexity compounded throughout all logistical operations, placing immense strain on an already overburdened system. On the morning of July 7, 1944, on Saipan, we return to where our story began, with massive Japanese assaults colliding with American machine gun fire. However, by this stage in the war, the outcome was never in doubt. The M1919 machine guns, firing 400 to 600 rounds per minute from 250 round belts, easily overpowered the Type 92s, which struggled with their 30 round strips at 450 rounds per minute. The mathematical reality was undeniable. American guns could deliver 10 times the firepower in any given time frame. One M1919 could fire continuously for a full minute without needing to reload, sending 400 to 600 rounds downrange. In contrast, a Type 92 would have to reload 20 times to achieve the same output, with each reload taking precious seconds under fire. When this firepower advantage was applied across thousands of combat encounters throughout the Pacific theater, it resulted in strategic supremacy. 390,000 minutes and 1919 seconds compared to 45,000 Type 92s. This disparity meant that American forces had a significant numerical advantage in automatic weapons at all levels of combat. It wasn't merely about having more guns, it also involved having more reliable firearms, greater ammunition supplies, more spare parts, and better trained crews. The American edge was exponential. The increased reliability of more weapons firing for extended periods with unlimited ammunition created a firepower gap that no amount of bravery could bridge. The effectiveness of the M1919 Browning showcased John Moses Browning's brilliance and America's industrial strength. This weapon demonstrated that meticulous engineering paired with mass production could yield military gear that delivered crucial advantages on the battlefield. The .30-06 cartridge, firing at 400 to 600 rounds per minute from a dependable, straightforward mechanism, outperformed the Type 92's intricate engineering and complicated operating system. The capacity to maintain sustained fire, transforming killing into an industrial endeavor, was key to achieving victory in the Pacific. For Japan, the shortcomings of the Type 92 highlighted the greater difficulties of waging an industrial war with handcrafted weapons. The weight, complexity, and unreliability of the gun reflected a military that had embraced modernity without fully grasping its demands. The meticulous craftsmanship that might have impressed during peacetime turned out to be woefully inadequate against American mass production. The focus on individual marksmanship and precision couldn't compete with the American strategy of volume and suppression. The Pacific War clearly showed that in modern combat, the capability to deliver consistent, reliable firepower was key to victory. American troops equipped with M1919 Brownings could unleash torrents of lead that no amount of bravery could withstand. In contrast, Japanese forces with Type 92s consistently found themselves outmatched, as their precise but slow-firing weapons were unable to keep up with the overwhelming firepower of American automatic arms. The mathematical accuracy of American firepower, firing 400 to 600 rounds per minute from belt-fed guns, outmatched the Type 92's 450 rounds per minute from 30 round strips. The human toll was immense. Japanese infantry assaults that might have succeeded against similarly armed foes were decimated by American machine gun fire. The banzai charges that had been effective in China against poorly equipped troops turned into suicide missions against American firepower. Thousands of Japanese soldiers perished attempting to traverse kill zones dominated by M1919s. Their lives were squandered against an industrial killing machine they couldn't compete with. Ultimately, the disparity between these weapons illustrates the broader narrative of the Pacific War itself. The M1919 embodied American industrial strength, practical engineering, and a grasp of modern warfare's demands. It was a victory of the adequate over the perfect, the practical over the theoretical, and the industrial over the artisanal. The Type 92 highlighted the difficulties faced by a nation trying to wage an industrial war with weapons conceived in a different era, crafted by methods suited for another scale, and utilized with strategies from a bygone century. When American machine guns unleashed their fire on advancing Japanese infantry, the outcome was dictated by design choices made years earlier in factories thousands of miles away. The M1919 Browning had won the production war long before it took control of the battlefield, establishing itself as one of history's most effective military weapons, while the Type 92 became a representation of Japan's struggle to contend with American industrial warfare. The Pacific War was ultimately decided not by bravery both sides possessed that in plenty, but by the capacity to mass-produce dependable weapons capable of delivering overwhelming firepower. In that competition, the M1919's 390,000 units compared to the Type 92's 45,000 told the whole story.